Shalom, shalom, everybody. Ariel Tzadok here from the KosherTorah School, found online. Where else? www.KosherTorah.com. I want to welcome everybody. It is Wednesday evening. It is 9/11, 2019. Gosh, time flies, huh? Remember 9/11? Remember the first one? Well, I remember that day. And many, many fellow Americans did as well. Now, rather than just wax nostalgically, I remember when right after 9/11, there was such a sentiment of unity in the United States here. And everyone bewails how that's lost today with all of our political infighting and all the rest. But you know something? I don't really think that's the point. I think that if we pay attention to really how people really psychologically responded to 9/11, I think that's really what the point is all about. And I'm going to get exactly to what I mean. And it's going to tie into tonight's class. We are right now in the fourth lesson in our Tikunei Zohar chapter, or lesson 67 class. And tonight we're going to talk, everybody's favorite topic, sex. The sexual revolution. Everything about sex that you had no one to ask that you don't want to know about. What's the whole big deal about sex? Well, if you remember from what our last class was, we went into a discussion here in our text about this old guy who was coming and asking the question about how the Torah could have existed before the beginning of the world, when it says a man dies in a tent. And then we said, we got into our discussion of the primordial Torah. And with that, we were discussing elements of the symbolic relationship of the body and the soul as being metaphorically referred to as Adam and Eve. Well, there's a whole bunch of things there. And we're going to pick up in our text, and we're going to talk about this stuff. And surprisingly, it's curious relationship to 9/11. Now, at the time of 9/11, I actually was living in Chicago. Shalom from Brooklyn. I used to live in Brooklyn too, Flatbush. But anyway, long story short, I remember I was actually in Manhattan a month after 9/11. I think it was like right during the, I think it was Sukkot. I was there. I was actually across the street from Ground Zero. I remember seeing the armed guards, military throughout all the bridges and everything. They were still there. I mean, we're Israeli, so it doesn't intimidate us like it might other Americans, but whatever. But I was more curious to how people were going to respond to this attack. And I don't mean politically. I wasn't so much concerned whether our government was going to declare war on Islam or Afghanistan. In all due respect, prior to 9/11, how many in the United States do you think ever heard of the Taliban? Ever heard of Afghanistan? I mean, they were not known, but we had to respond somehow, somewhere, and there we are. And here we are now in the year 2019, gosh, 19 years later. And the big news is that President Trump was going to try to have secret negotiations with the Taliban at Camp David. So, yeah, there we are and still are. But again, politics aside, I remember reading in the New York news media, I don't remember exactly what written source I had for this, but I remember reading it in more than one. And it was like this. Many of the secular New York people were so stunned and shocked by 9/11 that it really hit them in the one place that hurts the most, and that is their mortality. It can hit somebody in their wallet, and most people can overcome. You can hit people in many places, but when people are faced with the realization that they could die at any minute, that is when you really start to see, if you will, people's, in quote, true colors come out. And I remember what this one source. Again, I'm sorry, I can't remember where I actually read this. I don't remember if it was online. I think it was in one of the newspapers, probably the New York Post. I don't know how many of you like know New York newspapers. The New York Times used to be a rather, erudite and source of all the news. Today, it has become such a politicized, piece that no one pays attention to it anymore if you are of a different political opinion. The Daily News, New York Post. I mean, if you're New Yorkers, you understand exactly what my laugh is all about, because that's just the way it is. Yeah, you're right, Rob. People in America did know about Afghanistan from the Soviets. I remember Rambo 3. Rambo 3, of course, Afghanistan with the Soviets and everything else. But anyway, other than that, people in New York, amongst the secular, were hit with their mortality to the point in which their levels of just eat and drink for tomorrow we die escalated off the scales. And I remember they were saying that the levels of promiscuity arose sharply. The levels of unsafe sex rose sharply. And when interviewed and asked, whoever they interviewed and asked, they just said, well, why bother? Who cares? We could be dead tomorrow, so whatever. Party on, dude. Well, you see, that is the attitude that we really have to address here. We can get into our understandings of the Kabbalah, and pretty much what we're going to continue into Tikunei is to understand this division, this havdalah, between what we're going to be calling now the Reshut HaYahid and the Reshut HaRabim. Many of you who are Jewish and of Torah education will recognize those terms. I'll explain them. In the laws of the Sabbath, as you very well know from the Bible prohibits us from carrying any kind of item in a public domain, on the Sabbath. So it doesn't matter if it's something physically heavy. It could be my good old white kippah, all right? It could be anything, a piece of paper, all right? Prohibited to carry in a public domain. Whereas in a private domain, you're allowed to carry anything that you need to carry. Now, the rabbis came along and innovated other laws with regards to things that we are allowed to and not allowed to move on the Sabbath. Those things are called muktzeh. The reason why we don't move things, our sages rather rationally and clearly thought, something? If these are the things that are going to get you in trouble because you're going to use them and violate the Sabbath, don't use them. Don't touch them. This way, you're safeguarded. And that was the purpose of the sages, actually. If you remember, it's a Susiat Torah, make a safeguard around the Torah to protect people. Now, it's important that we recognize a very important point of what original and authentic halakha is supposed to be. Halakha was not developed by these, how would the opponents look at it? Oh, what is that word? Legalistic, that's the word, right? Whenever you're talking with many in the evangelical Christian or other Christian circles, they take a very anti-rabbinic point of view, unfortunately, even to the realms of anti-Semitism, which is terribly unfortunate. And they speak about these legalistic rabbis. Let me tell you something. I don't have a problem with legalism, right? Sometimes the laws and doing things right in accordance to the rules is the way you need to do things. But with that being said, what is or how is the law to be decided? Many people have a real skewered view of rabbis, right? Simply because of the way many rabbis are portrayed in the Christian Bible. In the Christian Bible, the rabbis were called the separate ones, or the perushim, right? Pharisees. And the relationship between them and the Essenes, very, very tight and close together, but another topic for another time. But the point is, even Yeshu himself Matthew 24, recognize the authority of the sages. He says, hey, you do what they say, but you be better than them. Better than the rabbis? Gee whiz. Were the sages, were the Pharisees really hypocrites? Yeah, they were. And I don't need Yeshu to be calling them a bunch of whitewashed tombs to saying that. The Gemara itself states that there were 7 types of Pharisees, 6 types of whom were hypocrites. Religious hypocrisy, exists to this day. Kind of like go out there in any religious neighborhood, you'll see it. With that being said, what was the whole point and purpose of our holy sages? Yeah, holy guys, real good guys, us. What was it all about? The answer was what we're talking about here in the Tikunei Zohar, but how to make proper balances. The whole purpose of a havdalah, separation, is for balances. Let me give you a real practical little example, which I consider to be one of the most important elements of what we call in Hebrew, shalom bayit, peace. For those of you who are married, and frankly, I don't give a darn who your partner is, whatever, however, let me give you one wise word of advice, especially, all right, if you're, male-female relationship. Thou shalt have separate bathrooms. I've learned that to be a very wise bit of advice. When, we just moved here to Knoxville, and the one point that I made very clear with Ellie, I said, okay, that's your bathroom over there, it's going to be my bathroom over here, and she's happy as can be. She makes all the signs she likes. Mine is filthy old men's bathroom. Hers is nice, pristine, clean bathroom. It makes her happy. It gives her space. Havdalah. Now, it's not like we have separate lives. We're not in separate houses on different sides of the continent as some people live. No. That's a little crazy. But you have to have balance. Remember, like in the last scene of The Matrix, energy, everything in reality is energy. This physical matter comes and goes, as we all know. The underlying pinning of everything is energy. Energy has its proper place. Energy has its proper alignment. Energy has its proper balance. Well, there is that energy which belongs in the, in quote, symbolic place called the private domain, the Reshut HaYahid. And then there is other energy which belongs in the, in quote, public domain called the Reshut HaRabim. We are now taking a deeper understanding of the Talmudic understandings of the public and private domains in which we carry. Again, just a quick little digression back to the law. The rabbis said, the Bible says, don't carry outside. You remember the famous story in the book of Numbers? There was a guy out there picking up sticks. What do? They put him in and they held him. And God says, he violated my Sabbath. Stone him. And he was publicly executed. That's pretty harsh, right? Thank God we don't do things like that today. That's pretty harsh. Why? He misaligned balances. That's what it is. He mixed up this Reshut HaRabim and this Reshut HaYahid, this public domain and private domain stuff. And when it comes to our laws today, God, thank God no one's killing anybody for doing any kind of crazy stuff. That's kind of like really weirdly extreme, so please don't go there. But at the same time, the underlying energetic message, which our sages were well aware of when they innovated these laws to properly create balance. Now, let's talk about this creating balance stuff. You see, our sages understood balance in 2 different ways. 1, external world. 2, internal world. The external world is not just the normal physical harmony in everyday life and affairs. That's what halakha is all about. When we study Talmud, all right, if anybody's ever studied Talmud, you can go online, you can just read a page of Talmud. What the crazy, that's crazy stuff, all right? I have seen detractors speak against the Talmud saying, look at what it says in there. It says all this weirdo stuff. Yeah, it does. Do you know why? Because the Talmud's not a Bible. The Talmud is an encyclopedia. And if you would open up Wikipedia or Encyclopedia Britannica or the World Book Encyclopedia, is what I grew up with, right? You find all kinds of weird stuff in there in the different articles. That's what it's there for. Well, that's why it's there in the Talmud. The Talmud, when you understand it correctly, and I've taught this, is a flow of moving, living energy. And if you can't grasp that as the ebb and flow of movement on the pages of the Talmud, you're missing the whole point of why the great rabbis put together the Talmud, to teach us the ebb and flow and movement of life. That's Talmud. Energy has its place. Energy has its balance. The rabbis tried to teach us that energy and balance by putting it all into the ebb and flow of conversation in the Talmud. So you can go from very rationalist, analytical discussion, and all of a sudden you're in this imaginative, intuitive, discussion of weird stuff. Agadot, as we call them. Going from right to left, oscillating consciousness from right to left. You're learning balance. You're learning harmony. That's what Talmud's all about. Reshut HaRabim, Reshut HaYahid, public domain, private domains. In the Bible, not allowed to carry. Public domain. Energetic reality that applies to it. And in the private domain, there's another energetic balance which is different. Are there really different energetic realities? Really? How about an example? How about something like night and day, sunshine and moonshine? I don't mean the drinking kind either. All right? It's simple stuff. This doesn't take, rocket science to understand. Understand now. We're talking about energetic balance. We learn this from our ebb and flow, from our Talmud. In my opinion, the Talmud is the greatest of all the mystical literature Judaism has ever produced. Certainly superior to the Zohar, in my opinion, every which way. That's me. I just don't think most people understand Kabbalistic Talmud. But what can I say? Getting back to my point. Getting back to the point of what the Tikunei Zohar is here to teach us. When you get through this whole discussion here about, it says here, I'm just going to read for a little bit, all right? He quotes here a verse in the Torah which says, Arora Gever, it's actually, no, in the Tanakh. Arora Gever sheyiftach ba'adam, v'sam b'sar zaro. It says, cursed be the man who places his faith in his fellow man, right? In flesh and blood kind of stuff. And they go, who is that? And who's the one you're putting your faith in? And he says, that's Samael. Samael is the evil man, the corrupted man. And he has shtei nekavot tov ra'ot, and he has two evil wives. All right, Samael, yeah, he's a big bad angel. Let me tell you something, especially when you're dealing with the Zohar. They throw around the name Samael and apply it to everything negative. And in this case, what they're referring to Samael as is, if you will, that which we call the Reshut, HaRabim, the public domain, in which all these external energies are mixed and merged, and nothing is properly balanced. Nothing is pure. Now, why do we have to get pure into this? Forget concepts like morality here. Forget concepts of religion here. Pure means this undistilled, pure, refined, okay? When you go to the store and you want to buy, I don't know, pick any item that you want. Honey, salt, I don't know, whatever, milk, water. You want it to be pure. You don't want to buy, say, bottles of water, right? 99% water, 1%, I don't know. Throw in whatever you want, right? You wouldn't buy that. You wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole, right? I'm going to buy honey, 99% pure, 1% garbage. Touch it. We want things that are what they are. That's common sense. And that's the natural, normal way of the energy of the universe. You have that which has its proper place and therefore maintains its credibility, its stability by being what it is. Speaking of which, I don't know if you can hear him. I got my old buddy Texas in here. Texie, want to come say hi to the camera? Come on. Come, can you hop up? Quick hi, Texie. Say hello, everybody. There's Texie the Wonder Dog. Go lie down. Be a good boy. You know, I think it was about a year or two ago, we had a real serious medical issue with Tex. And the vet said it was going to be like $10,000 if to do this emergency surgery. We were desperate. I made a call. I made a public appeal. If anybody's willing or would want to, I said, it's not Torah, but would be willing to help Tex. Monies came rolling in from all the dog lovers, and I was so touched. And then I jokingly said, I wish people would donate this way to Torah as much they give to the dog. And then I paused and I caught myself and I said, you know something? They are. Because if we want to talk about what real Torah is all about, it's doing the right thing. Tex is wonderful, wonderful. I call him my canine son. Yeah, he's hot in here. I turned off the fan because, so we don't have the noise in the background. But anyway, my point again is people rose up to help him. And that is what Torah is all about. And they did do what was right. And here we are, blessed and thankful to this day that Texie is still with us. As hot as he is in my office today. But anyway, getting back to the point, energy and balance, doing the right thing. This symbol of the Reshut HaRabim is this low level in which everything isn't pure. Everything is not in its right place. Everything is not in its right form. Everything is compromised and therefore, by definition, contaminated. What do we do about that? Well, if you are given a responsibility, we have something that's contaminated, and I'm putting you in charge of fixing it. What are you going to do? Well, you're going to create whatever apparatus is necessary, possibly some machinery, maybe dictate some laws to try to get things in the proper balance and order. Hey, just like what our sages did, son of a gun. And that is the process of human evolution and development, to try to get things in order so that the Reshut HaYahid, the private domain in which everything is pure, can be maintained and established. So that is why on the Sabbath, we don't take anything from the place of balance and harmony, Reshut HaYahid, private domain, and take it into the public domain, the place of chaos, confusion, impurity, contamination. The Kabbalah of this and the halacha of this are one and the same. This is the underlying teaching here of what the Tikunei Zohar is getting into. So this is where and how we must understand things in life. There are things which by definition are pure and uncontaminated. Law, thou shalt not mess with them. Keep things pure. One of those things that is meant to be pure energetically is that harmonious balance between what we call in Kabbalah the Ma and the Ben, what the Orient they call the Yin and the Yang. And everything is supposed to be in proper harmony and balance with one another. We call that today, don't you? Marriage. Husbands, wives, men, women. Proper balance and harmony. And look at the fundamental attack on our society today. It is to completely subvert the fundamental fabric of universal balance. Men are no longer men. or males. Women are no longer women or females. Now you have male and female, or half female, or half female, half male, or this or that. I remember a couple of years back, I took to make my son to the clinic, and filling out the medical form, and name, address, all the rest of that stuff, and then said sex. Remember, I used to have male, female, and have like 6 or 7 different things. I don't know what the heck. I don't know what half of them were. This is the confusion. This is that Reshut HaRabim of which we talk about. Now, people are going to condemn me. Oh, you're so insensitive to the needs of others. No, let me tell you something. I respect others, and I encourage you to as well. We don't call people names. We don't offend and insult. We certainly never, ever act with violence. We extend respect to people, whoever they are. Right? I don't care what their sexual orientation is. I don't care what they do or how they do it. We always show respect. We can disagree. We can fundamentally have differences. But we do so in a proper, respectful way. Why? Because that gives honor and respect to us. That's who we are. Now, I'm not going to get into, issues like same-sex type of stuff and the like that. But actually, I wrote a halachic piece on this. Yeah, I will get into it just for 2 minutes. I wrote a halacha, my psak din, if you will. I was asked what I thought of like gay marriage between 2 men, and I said, well, let's look at this, from a point of halacha. Number one, we know the Bible says, 2 men are not allowed to be sexually intimate with one another through anal penetration. That's what the Bible says. You do that, that's a thou shalt not. Okay? And many people there today are very, very homophobic, is it? They're against gays, they're violent, they're expression. I said, this violates everything that we hold sacred, right? I still don't accept homosexuality because the Torah says not to. All right? Is it unnatural? Well, it's clearly energetically imbalanced, but got to show respect to these people. I mean, I've known and interacted with people of the gay community all my life. The loveliest, nicest people in the world. I certainly have no problems with that. But halacha. 2 Orthodox Jewish men. They get married. What's the halacha? The answer is real simple. According to halacha, we do not recognize secular marriage. It doesn't matter if it's between a man and a woman, a man and a man, or a man and his dog, or a man and an alien. It doesn't matter. The only definition of kiddushin, according to halacha, is man and a woman, ketubah, and stuff like that. Those rules and criteria cannot be applied. It does not have jurisdiction outside of that context. And that is why, for example, a Jewish individual and a non-Jewish individual cannot be married under the context of Jewish law. Why? Because there's no jurisdiction there. It's not a matter of, it's a sin and evil in God's eyes. Forget all that, stuff. There's just no jurisdiction. Right? They live happily. I know many people married Jewish, non-Jewish, and they live happily, lovely lives. God bless them. Right? That's not the issue. Get the 2 guys. They're both religious. They get married in a secular ceremony. What does halakha say? Secular ceremonies are not recognized. They can call themselves husbands and husband all they want. There's nothing there according to our Torah, right? We don't recognize it. We don't not recognize it. It's just not there. So what about these 2 guys now? They come to shul all the time. Well, remember the law. The law states we only condemn an individual of being guilty of a violation of a law, not by suspicion or innuendo, but by actual visual confirmation in front of 2 witnesses. So if we wish to condemn 2 individual men of violating the biblical laws of forbidden contact, then you have to have 2 witnesses who actually watch and witness them doing that. And that's a little too voyeuristic to me. I don't think people are going to be doing that. So we don't have any biblical evidence of condemnation. So as we say in Brooklyn, you shut up by your bigger mouth. as long as they don't act in ways that would be societally inappropriate, they come and go to shul, they come and go to yeshiva, they come and do whatever they want. You show respect, you show honor, and that's that. And if God doesn't like what they're doing, well, the good Lord in heaven can throw down his mighty old lightning bolt anytime he wants and strike anybody dead who he so chooses. And I don't see those lightning bolts coming so quick. So God doesn't throw his lightning bolts, neither do I. Getting back to energy. Okay? Are a same-sex couple energetically balanced? I don't think so. But I could be wrong. Right? I don't think that many of the people in the community are sensitive to or care about energy. They just want to live their lives, and God bless, they should be happy. You hear that, guys, in your community? God bless, you should be happy. You heard it from me. Right? I got no problems with that. When Rabbi Dweck spoke about similar things in London, I knew his dad, God rest his soul, out in L.A., and I have no problems with what he said, even though some of the more extremist fundamentalists, put him in harem, blasphemy, blah, blah, blah. You know, this is immature and irresponsible. People who pontificate like that are clearly in this Reshut HaRabim, creating chaos and confusion rather than purity and alignment. So this is what we have to understand about the nature of energy. Everything is meant to be properly balanced and aligned. Me, I'm not the brightest bulb in the package. I'm sorry, I confess, okay? I look at the universe, I look at things, I look at nature, and okay, what I see is what I get kind of stuff. So I understand that there's, in our Kabbalah, Ma and Ben, in the Orient they call it the Yin and the Yang. There's an energetic balance of the positive and the negative and the day and the night metaphor, and I guess that's the natural way it's supposed to be. So, sorry, not the rocket scientist me. That's the way I see it. That's the way I understand it. That's the way I know. When I practice my energy forms, I've been doing martial arts all my life. I'm not into the punching and kicking anymore. I'm getting kind of old for that stuff. All right, I've learned how to kill people like 230 different ways. Is that enough? I don't go around killing people. I'm an avowed pacifist. I don't like violence. Yes, there's time and a place for violence, I confess. But hopefully, thank God, I don't have to be the perpetrator of it. But if I had to, I got 230 different ways to take someone out like that. But whatever. Anyway, I remember, just to digress again, 30 years ago, I started in my soft styles. I started with Bagua Chuan, and then I went into Tai Chi Chuan and Qigong and all the rest of that stuff. And I'll tell you the story. When I first went for my first lesson in soft styles, now I'm an old Southern Shaolin Hungar school, Lung Jiao Pai, Dragon Claw school. I did that 15, 20 years. Got kind of good at it, I guess. And I wanted to go in the soft styles. That's what you're supposed to do. So Master was there, and he spoke broken English, just got off the boat from China, and this is before, normalization. So he's like in the country illegally stuff. And he would always open up the class with a lesson in the Tao Te Ching, which he taught in Chinese, which had to be translated, but it was really cool stuff. Loved it. And anyway, so he wanted to know what I was capable of. I said, I did my forms, basic Hungar forms. I showed him. He wasn't impressed at all. And I said, okay, let's spar. I says, let's see if he said to me, let's see if I could hit him. He was like 5 foot tall, this big fat guy, not what you would consider, like Bruce Lee, Jet Li, Jackie Chan kind of material, right? This is not Donnie Yen we're talking about here. He's a fat roly-poly guy. Let me tell you something about that fat roly-poly guy. I tried my best. This was 30 years ago, and I was definitely at my peak. I couldn't touch him. It was like something on one of these freaking kung fu movies. I come in with a punch, I come in with a move, and he's like bouncing around, like one of these bouncing balls on the water. Every time I was coming around, he was just like dancing out of my way. We went around like this for 15 minutes. I couldn't lay a hand. He never even had to block me. He just. And I'm saying, what is with you? Where did you? He impressed me. That's you get the master there. In 15 minutes after that, he showed me subtle little changes in how to move with a foot, how to flick with a wrist. And it changed everything in 15 minutes, what I learned in the past 15 years. And that's what my introduction to the flow of energy. And that's when I became subtly aware of all these things that we talked about in Kabbalah, started to internalize within me. That's how I understood these things. That's how I understand balance. So, long story short, over many, many years, you get a flow for this. You understand these things. And with that introduction, for me, everything changed. I could see everything differently. Whenever, and I was trained, this is the time I was trained, at the Jungian school in New York, and I was doing all my psychoanalytic training. And I was, involved with all kinds of different religious stuff. My camera just froze again. Did I just lose everybody? Okay, I might have just lost picture again. We had this happen before. For whatever reasons, I have a glitch in my computer in which I lose camera. I lose picture of me. But then again, what do I need to see myself? You need to see me, and I know you could see me already. So anyway, getting back to my point here. When you start seeing and understanding energy, just like what the Zohar is talking about, you understand what it means when the Zohar uses the term Reshut HaRabim, where in which everything is not in the proper state of alignment and harmony. In 15 minutes of trying to strike the master, I got that message. They didn't call it Reshut HaRabim at the time, but I understand it now. And then he taught me how to be pure with the energy. Started with all the slow flow of the movement, walking our circles and everything else. And then in time, these things picked up. And I understood. So when I come now to read the Tikunei Zohar, I said, I gotcha. So we're talking about trusting in the lower forms, the external, this Reshut HaRabim. That's what's called cursed. We call that the world of Samakel. And Samakel, he's an angel. He serves God. He really gets a bad name because the Zohar throws onto him all the garbage and the stuff, and it really shouldn't be. Because he's just doing his job like Michael and Gabriel and all the others. And again, the Ariel says something about the word Sam means poison, El, poison of God. But if you look at the name Samech Mem, Aleph Lamed, if you take out the Mem in the middle, you have Samech Aleph Lamed, which is one of the holy triads of the 72 names of God. So in that respect, they say when Mashiach comes, he's going to be promoted, elevated, and they take the Mem out of his name. We always put letters in and out of names. But that's the point. What that all means is this. Right now, we're in a struggle between the Reshut HaRabim, the public domain, and the Reshut HaYahid, the private domain. We confuse the two all the time. And that is where our problems arise. The text in the Zohar, goes on. You know what? I'm going to skip. Yes, I am, because I want to get this point, and I want to read it to you from within the text so you know what I'm saying. It says here, Yesh Adam Shehu Yisrael. There is Adam, man, if you will. We call him Israel, and I'll explain it after I read it. Yesh Adam Shehu Malach. Then there's the Adam, who is an angel, and that's Metatron. And then there is an Adam, who is B'diukan HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who is in the image of the Holy One, blessed be He, from his level of Atzilut. And he says specifically the name Yud K, Vav K, when it's spelled out with the letter Aleph, to be the gematria of 45, numerical value of the name of Adam. So you got man, Yisrael, Malach, and he states here, this higher level of man is only Atzilutic without a bariatic, Yetziratic, or Asiatic expression. Now, let me explain all this. We have in the Kabbalah basically what's called 4 worlds. Atzilut, Yetzirah, Beria, Asiya. What they are, all right, from top to bottom. Atzilut is called the ideal, the world of how it's supposed to be, the proper and true, pure, refined Reshut HaRabim. Excuse me, Reshut HaYahid. Got that wrong. The Reshut HaYahid is the pure Atzilutic, because it's a place where everything is proper, the ideal world, what that Plato would refer to. But beneath that, we have the Reshut HaRabim, wherein which confusion enters in. And confusion exists in three different phases. Confusion in the mind, confusion in the emotions in the heart, and certainly confusions in action. This is that place where everything is now impure, unbalanced, disharmonious. And yet we have Adam, man, in all these different levels. You see, according to Rab Chaim Vital and Kabbalistic sources, we have those four worlds we've just described, but there's the fifth world, the fifth element. That fifth element is the psychically evolved human soul. In our Torah tradition, we call that psychically evolved human soul the Yisrael soul. Many people misunderstand and misinterpret, because they're looking at it from the Reshut HaRabim level instead of the Reshut HaYahid level. And they think, well, if I have a Yisrael soul, that's all the Jews. So the Jews, being that they're Yisrael, are obviously better from everybody else. That's a bunch of racist BS lies. Let the truth be told. Okay? Being Kabbalistically a Jew and being Kabbalistically Yisrael are completely and totally different things. You're born Jewish mom, converted according to Orthodox law. But that doesn't mean, like Jacob, our forefather, that you become Yisrael. In order because he had to rise to become Yisrael, and we follow the same form, the same path. Today, what we will call an enlightened soul, an avatar, if you will, someone who's achieved the level of enlightenment. That's what we call the Yisrael level, the fifth element of soul. And they are few and far between, and yet they exist in each and every nation, in each and every country, in each and every place. So that's the great secret of the Israel souls. And those are the ones that we say are in the level of the Atzilutic level. That's the true essence of things. But yet, you have the level of those who are at the level of Metatron. Metatron is still the lower level of soul. Consider the difference, if you will, between that and Yisrael and Yaakov, if you will. So that is where we are at today. The difference between this Reshut HaRabim and Reshut HaYahid. The public domain, where which everything's all messed up, and the private domain, where everything's balanced and in harmony. So if you are in the place of balance and harmony, again, don't mess it up. That's going into the public domain, which is why the Sabbath, the whole concept of Sabbath is the balance and harmony between the individual and nature, the universe, Zecher, L'Maaseh Bereshit, remembrance of the act of creation. One who is properly balanced with the natural order understands the political, social, and psychological ramifications of that, and creates a society in which there is proper responsibility, balance, and thus freedom for the individual. And therefore, Shabbat, Zecher L'Yetziat Mitzrayim, in remembrance of the going forth from Egypt. That's what Sabbath is all about. Can a non-Jew observe Sabbath? Of course you can. What kind of crazy question is that? Can they observe Sabbath the exact same way as Jews do in the observance of Halakha? Yes, but why would you want to? Right? Observe Sabbath for how and what it means to you. You don't have to live by the rigid laws of others. It doesn't make you any closer to God or better. There's a big problem out there. People think that by somehow being Jewish or being religious, you get closer to God. No, sorry, that ain't true. I only wish it were, but it ain't. Those are all the mistakes of the intellect which come from the Reshut HaRabim. So, how do we get from this public domain of confusion and chaos and contamination to the place of purity and properness, the Reshut HaYahid? The answer, really kind of simple. Energetic balance, harmony. The Zohar states here again, "Mi shemachnis zaro b'nida o shikha o goya o zona ki'ilu ma'arev ma shehevdil HaKadosh Baruch Hu." One who has sexual intercourse with any of the forbidden partners, menstruous woman, slave, whatever, right? Anything that represents the Reshut HaRabim. This is where we have energetic imbalance. And this is why promiscuity is considered so very, very bad. The more one is promiscuous sexually by having multiple partners, doesn't matter what, male or female in that respect, they're mixing energies from this one with that one and that one and this, and all you get is a big, like we learned the word from a previous lesson, irabuba, a big mess. And realistically speaking, it boils down that the individual, the more, and this is true, you go check this out through anyone and everyone you know, the more sexually promiscuous an individual is, the harder it is for that individual to settle down in a healthy and balanced, lifelong, monogamous relationship. That's not just because of sexual pleasure or impleasure. It's because energetically inside the individual, there's such a mess that they don't know how to properly purify themselves as an individual to be in that proper ma ben yin yang relationship with another. It's a real psychological thing I've noticed over many, many years. Over the years, when you learn energetic balance, like I started like with the martial arts and understand greater with Torah, I've been counseling people for 30 years. And I'll tell you this, you can look at an individual. Doesn't matter how physically attractive the individual is, male or female. If you take, if you will, like a kind of sideline look at them, you can see their energetic signature. Maybe not with the physical eye, you'll feel it, you'll sense it. And you can just get a sense of how deep and far into the Reshut HaRabim, how much into the public domain, how contaminated, how corrupted, how imbalanced the individual is, how lost the soul is. That is what the Zohar is trying to teach us here in this section. Why we don't mess around with things. So you see, yes, I can go in and give you a very elaborate type of understanding of the Kabbalah. But what good is it if we don't bring it down to earth? You don't take from the Reshut HaRabim. All right? Excuse me, let me rephrase. You don't take from the Reshut HaYahid and bring it out into the Reshut HaRabim. You don't take from the private domain into the public. But what about the opposite? Can I take something from the public domain into the private? Well, there are laws that do dictate that with regards to the Sabbath. But energetically, that is what we call teshuvah, return. Returning from a state of contamination to a state of purity, a state of confusion to a state of clarity. That is what life is all about. Here we are now in the countdown to Rosh Hashanah. And these are the things that are important to us. After 9/11, the people who are completely oblivious to any kind of energetic harmony and balance just said, whatever, and sought the most superficial expressions of physical pleasures that they could, because they were so disconnected, so lost, they knew nothing else but that reality. And it only made matters worse. It disassociated people. And if you look at our society today, look at what's happening to us. Individuals are becoming more and more isolated from one another. Where in which not only do you have a breakdown of relationships, growing numbers of divorced people, enter into, what's supposed to be a lifelong relationship of a marriage, and they say, what the heck, if it doesn't work, we leave. Well, with that kind of lack of commitment, it's not exactly a healthy way to start. You got to work through all the hard stuff. In all due respect, Rabbanit Elisheva and I are celebrating now meeting for a year. And we've had our ups and downs. I mean, for the whole process of her making the transition, moving from France to the United States, oh my goodness. We've had some interesting times because of just basic cultural differences. You have to learn to be sensitive and respectful and learn to create balance on both sides. That's what building is all about. How many of us remember that? How many of us practice this? So when we want to turn to the Zohar, we say, I like all this cool, special stuff. And the whole message of the Zohar is create havdalah, make the separation. The separation is not between things that belong together. It is between things that do not belong together. That is the great havdalah. That is what we were talking about here. And that is why, using our example of Adam and Eve as body and soul, why you're not supposed to mess the two. Meaning, the body has its needs, obviously. Physicality has its needs. Spirituality, or the inner, has its needs. Are they the same? No, they're not. But they are complementary to one another. Never the twain shall meet. Don't try to justify things that are not justifiable. Don't try to corrupt things, pervert things. This is the blemish of what we call the tree of knowledge, good and evil, where in which we have knowledge. Our whole society is built on knowledge. Is our knowledge good or evil? Modern technology, good or evil? We are right now using the platform of Facebook to connect with many of you literally around the world. You are hearing my words, you're seeing my image. Even though I don't see myself, who cares? That part's good. But yet I hear news reports about security breaches and all this other kind of stuff, and societal trying of influencing, and a negative, dark side supposedly to Facebook. I don't know much of anything about it. That's what they say. Good or evil? Which is it? Hamavdil ben kodesh l'chol. That's what we do. We separate between good and evil. What is good? What is evil? Well, people today go around and they practice all of their promiscuities and all that, and they say, hey, that's good. If you understood the energy connections that tap into these things and recognize the continualization of contamination, that's bad. Let's take a quick step back. What is contamination? We defined it already. Something that's not pure. Again, I want to go to the store and I want to buy a bottle of good old Evian water, and it says 99% pure water and 1%, I don't know what, throw in whatever you want, right? Would you buy that? Not only no, it would be hell no. We want things that are. That's only natural. So when we want to understand human relationships, we have to be pure with one another. That's why we seek to push out all of those other negative components that Reshut HaRabim mentality, and we stay in the proper harmonious balance of a Reshut HaYahid. For many people today, that's really hard to create, but I cannot tell you just how absolutely important it is to create. So this Tikunei Zohar 67 concludes with a discussion real quick about this is why we have what is called that which is kosher as opposed to that which is not kosher, that which is pure, clean or unclean, that which is permitted and forbidden. 6 different levels. I said that's why symbolically we have the 6 orders of the Mishnah, the words of our rabbis, to give us a path that we can walk that properly creates energetic harmony. Well, people misunderstand Judaism and its forms today. They might not succeed in that. But for those who understand the underlying essences of energy, that's exactly what it's all about. Judaism, halakha, and the like. So I'm going to stop here And we're going to pick up in a different tikkun next class, Motzei Shabbat, I think. Next Wednesday, I don't know if I'm going to be able to give class because I'm going to be out of state for a good thing, Simchat of a Nisuin, God be willing, a marriage. We're going to go on a wedding. But anyway, at this point, if you have any questions, we have just about 5 minutes left. I will take them at this time. So let me start scrolling down and see if I have any questions. Do we have to get here in order for Mashiach to come? All right, let me talk to you real quick about Mashiach. And another question, will these laws apply in Messianic times? Messianic times, the coming of Mashiach is when the universe, the energy, human consciousness realigns with the natural universal order. And Allah, according to quantum physics, ALA, according to quantum physics, everything's based on perception. So when we, as a global race, can perceive the proper energetic balance, we will therefore materialize it and live it. And everything in the entire world will change thereby. And that is the Messianic era. Here's the question, how are we going to get there? Well, that's a good question. You got people like me in business to try to help teach and educate people about this, and other people are doing their share. Is that going to be enough? Is there going to be some other types and forms of intervention? I guess the universe knows, and God, who guides the universe, will make things happen as they're meant to happen. But that's what we need. But as the Baal Shem Tov says, everything starts with the individual. Meaning, it says here, the Baal Shem Tov says, we each have a spark of Mashiach inside of ourselves. We each got to, activate it, which means individually we have to find our own point of balance, our own Reshut, HaYahid, and that is our place to find. That's the most important thing for each individual to do. And in that, then we contribute to part of the greater whole, as opposed to being someone who actually detracts from it. So that's what it's all about. What is your energetic balance? What is your proper place? If you're acting, behaving in ways which are improperly energetic, then you're going to have problems with that. For example, did you know in Halakha we have a law that states if there is promiscuity, divorce is required, because once the energy bond is broken, like the pasuk says in Proverbs, that which is broken, that which is twisted, can never be repaired. And in my many, many years of counseling, I've seen that psychologically to be true. It's the same thing with our relationships. You got to stay true, you got to stay pure, you got to stay and do what's right, because that's what Reshut or HaYahid is all about. All right, what do we got here? For a head of cabbage or pickled, for a mountain you've just begun. Oh, good. People like what I'm saying here, so thank you. But anyway, guys, that's pretty much it. No other questions. That's cool and groovy. But this is an important lesson. It really is an important message, energy balance. All right, this is why we don't mess around. I think, in my opinion, sexual promiscuity today, to me, is the greatest of all holocausts. Because, if you get drunk, it's bad and wrong. If you take drugs, it's bad and wrong. People mess around sexually all the time, and they shrug their shoulders and nothing wrong. If you have a committed partner and you cheat on your partner, ask your partner how wrong it is. Okay? You understand what I'm saying. This is why we don't do these types of things. This is why we maintain balance, harmony, and we build that which God has given us. That is what's most important. So, okay, guys, I think I got the message across. I think we've gotten the message, what the Tikunei Zohar wants us to learn and understand. And on that note, let's just say, as we say, Shalom Yisrael. God be willing. I hope you get the message. Please. I noticed the last class, I think it was last, people really liked that. They shared a lot. Please share this. Get the message out. Let people know and understand and see for themselves. We have to build a better world. We got to do what's right. And any one of you guys who want to help support our KosherTorah school, become a monthly supporter, give a donation at this high holiday period. Hey, we need you. So I thank you again for everything. Alrighty, guys, let's call it a night. Thank you all for joining me again. I'm your host, Ariel Tzadok of the KosherTorah School, KosherTorah.com. Quick little side note, just got back from LA, did some really cool shooting for not only Ancient Aliens, they're going to put me on an episode of Curse of Oak Island. So looking forward to seeing all that. Guys, see you online, see you on TV. Thanks for joining me. Take care. Shalom.